another Beansbag and Handicraft Company's tutorial. Today we are doing the Lowarn by Country Cow Designs. It is a brand new bag that she's just come out with. It is so cute. Yes, I couldn't wait to make it. This pattern only came out a couple days ago. Well, if you're watching it today, which is August 1st. I first off want to thank Jo for allowing me to do tutorials on her patterns. I was very excited when I saw this bag. I can tell you now, it is not a beginner bag. So if you're a beginner, do not attempt this bag. It will only frustrate you until you get a little more experience. I would say it would be like an advanced intermediate to an expert bag. I've been making bags for a while, and this one challenged me, which is amazing because everyone needs to be challenged every now and again. And I actually learned many new things with this myself. Let me show you a few things about this bag. So it has many options. There's these side pockets here on each side. And she has in the pattern that you could put card slots on in the pockets. I didn't do that. If I were to use this bag, I'd be using one side probably for my keys and the other side for my cell phone. It comes with two handle options. You have the handbag handles, which is what I chose to do. You can see that I put mine on backwards. I will note where I say that in the video because, yeah, do the opposite of what I say. But it's all noted in there. It has a magnetic closure here with zippers. And the best thing about a barrel bag is what the insides look like. As you can see, it is a binding finish. I walk you through how to do the binding. Do not be scared of binding. I was scared of binding and I love binding now. It makes things so much easier, trust me, once you get the hang of it. Jo has a video out as well. I'm going to put a link down to her video down in the description. She does her binding a little different than I do. She has a few different techniques. The more people doing the videos, the better, because we all learn from each other. So yeah, I'll be putting her tutorial and her channel. Make sure you subscribe to her down in the description, as well as a place to get where you can go to get the pattern. Yeah, no, I just love this, the Lowarn. I really hope, I should tell you what it means. So Lowarn in Cornish means fox, and I think she was thinking this was a foxy bag and just really liked to use the Cornish translation. I love this bag. Like, I seriously want to make more so I can fix my imperfections, even though I think I'm probably the only one that notices them. But it was a real fun. So I do want to apologize in advance before you get started in the video. I don't know what was going on. Usually I can get a tutorial filmed within a day. It took me 2 days to do it. I first had problems with my camera, and that was fine. I got everything unloaded off of the camera into the computer, get all the editing done, and that was fine. When I came back at it this morning, my iMovie program completely crashed, and when it came back, some of the beginning videos are a little choppy. I don't know what happened, but I'd already deleted those videos off of my phone because my phone only holds so many, so I couldn't go and redo them. So those were the videos from yesterday. Now, videos from today, well, partway through, my lavalier mic decided to die, and I didn't notice it for, probably about 20 minutes. So I have commentary over top of the videos. I actually think I really like doing it that way. I found that I was able to describe it a little bit better. So please do leave comments below what you think of that. I ended up doing it mostly to the end just because I did not have a good microphone. I'm not using a microphone right now, so I apologize if my because the camera's a little ways away from me, so it may sound a little off. I just really wanted to get this out this weekend, so it is what it is. Looks like I have to invest in some new microphones and maybe a new camera, and maybe look into a different video software because I'm just having problems altogether. Anyways, back to the Lowarn. by Country Cow Designs. Definitely check this out if you're an experienced bag maker. Even if you're an intermediate or medium, but not a beginner. Do not attempt this as a beginner. It'll only discourage you. Make this a goal bag to do. And yeah, I love it. I just love how tiny it is. So I hope you guys all love this tutorial. If you do, make sure you give me a like. Anyways, I'll see you over on the other side. Okay, so let's get started. Let me start by showing you the hardware and the pieces that you will need to cut. So starting with hardware, well, first you're going to need bias tape. You can make your own. I just prefer to buy it. It's easier for me. I got the extra wide double fold bias tape by Wrights. It's a 1/2 inch bias tape. You are going to need 1 magnetic snap, 4 rectangular rings, 1 inch rectangular rings, your nameplate or handmade logo, for number 5 zipper pulls and number 5 zipper tape, and then a bunch of scraps of Decovil Heavy or Peltex or even Decovil Lite, just to be able to back behind the magnetic snaps and the rivets if you choose to use them. You will also need 8 rivets if you're choosing to use rivets. So that is all for hardware. It's very minimal for hardware, which is awesome. Now let's get into our pieces. You're going to need 2 pieces for your zipper tabs. You are going to need 4 pieces for your connectors. You are going to need, and again, I haven't trimmed, I am terrible for this. I haven't trimmed my interfacing yet after fusing, but you are going to need 2 lining pieces and 2 exterior pieces for your pocket base. This is only if you're doing the side pocket version. Again, all of my cotton I have backed with SF101, and I also have on the exterior pieces Decovil Lite fused down the middle with 1/2 inch seam allowance left around the edges. You are going to need a base overlay and Decovil Heavy. Do not fuse this on yet. We will do that once we get to making this overlay. So leave it unattached for now. You are going to need 2 handle pieces. In this one I am doing the short handles, but I'm doing them as 1 inch short handles. You are going to need 4 piece bead top pieces. So you need 4 exterior pieces, or 2 exterior pieces and your 2 lining pieces. Again, I have my cotton backed with SF101. This one has black SF101. This one has the white. And on the exterior pieces, I have Decovil Heavy fused in within a 1/2 inch of the seam allowance. You are going to need tongue stabilizer. Do not fuse this one yet. We will do this at a later time, as well as your exterior tongue piece and your lining tongue piece. Again, do not fuse your Decovil Lite in there just yet, as that'll come as we work our way through the pattern. You are going to need your front and back main pieces. The exterior are backed with Decovil Lite, and your lining pieces. Again, I haven't trimmed my SF101 out of the out of it yet, so ignore that messiness of all that. So 2 exterior, 2 lining, exterior is backed with the Decovil Lite. Again, all my cotton pieces are backed with SF101. you are going to need 2 exterior side pieces. Again, they are backed with Decovil Lite outside of the seam allowances. And you are going to need 6 side pocket lining pieces. These are also backed with SF101. I am not doing the card slot version of this bag, and I'm not including that in this tutorial. I will reference Joe's tutorial down below from Country Cow Designs, and she does walk you through how to add that piece if you want to have the card slots in the side pockets. And that is all the pieces. So we are going to start with doing the straps. Usually I don't show how I do the straps. I'll move you up so you can see my face. I usually don't show how I do the straps, but I am going to show you today because it is a new method. I have done them before with some other patterns, but I don't do them very often. So we are going to walk through that and we'll do those straps together. So let's get those pieces together and come back and get that done. Okay, to begin, we're going to take out our 4 connector pieces. I've already gone ahead. I usually do this when I cut them out, is I mark you can tell my cutting's not so great there. I mark my centers, so I save a step later on. It's just easier when I'm drawing it out on the back of my vinyl. Let me cut those a little better. So in the center of your pieces, make sure you have a line marked. You are going to need double-sided tape. You don't have to use double-sided tape. I prefer to use double-sided tape. That's your choice. If you're using cotton pieces, you can definitely just press these if you wanted to. So what we're going to do with these is we are going to take double-sided tape and put them onto the outside like that. Remove the backing, and then you're going to fold the long edges into that center line. Just like so. And then you're going to go ahead and you're going to do that with the other 3 pieces. Okay, so that's all 4 done. We are not going to top stitch these like we usually would with connectors, not just yet. So to make sure my tape doesn't feel super sticky, so we are going to put these aside for now, and I'm just going to put a couple of these alligator or whatever, they're hair clips of some sort, just to hold my seams together so they don't pop open and I have to redo them. And then you can put those 4 pieces aside and then grab out your zip tabs. Now the zip tabs are optional for this bag. You don't have to put them on. I'm going to because I think it's just going to make it a lot easier to close the bag when you have it unzipped. So very similar. Again, I cut this out really fast. It took me about an hour to cut and interface the whole bag, so that's not too bad. So just like we did with the zipper tab or the connectors, we're going to put our tape on the long edges. And fold the long sides into the center. You'll do the same with the other one, and then I'm going to take this to the machine and we are going to top stitch down the sides with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance just on the 2 zipper tabs. All right, now we are going to need the 2 handles as well as all 4 rectangle rings. So what we want to do is we want to make sure we've marked our center again. Again, I do that when I'm cutting out my vinyl. And from the ends, we want to make sure we're not sticking 1.5 inches. And there's Miss Coco. She's making an appearance early this time. Okay, so I'm just going to put a line there so I know I'm not going to put any double-sided tape on this side, on both sides, like so. And then I'm going to take my double-sided tape on the long sides. And again on the other side. And just like we did with our strap connectors, we're going to fold them into the center, except for we're not doing it on this side. And you'll see we're in this area where we marked the 1.5 inches, and you'll see why. So bring it down to the center and stick it with the tape. Again, you can press this if you aren't using vinyl, or finger press it, or use clips. If you don't want to use the double-sided tape, it does gum up your needle a little bit. If you're on a domestic machine and that does happen, you could probably try some Dritz wash away wonder tape. That's what I used to use when I used my Juki 2010Q for this, and it didn't gum up my needle too bad. It did a little bit, but not too bad. I am on my Titan, which is an industrial machine, so it has no issues going through the tape at all. And then bring in the other side. Just like so. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your rectangular rings, 2 of them, and you're going to slip it on, 1 and 2. And then we're going to fold this right sides together with the rings on there. Open up that area where we didn't stick the glue. And I need some clips. And clip them together. And then we are going to take this over to the machine, and I believe, yes, we're going to sew across that with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And I'll take you over to the machine and do that. I'm just going to do up my other strap, and we will do them both over at the machine. Okay, so now we are going to sew across this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And I'm just noting that I did put my left side zipper foot on the machine. That's just going to make it a lot easier for what we're about to do next, just in case you notice that I have a different foot on my machine. Make sure you backstitch. Just like that. And then I'm going to take a little bit of double-sided tape again, just to stick these down. So I'm just putting it on the tops of those so I can make those seams lay flat. Again, you could just finger press it. I just know that this is going to keep them where I want them to be. So like that. And then you can kind of fold this into the middle as well. There is no tape to hold it there, but there's some on the side, so it should be fine. Okay, so now what we want to do is we have that seam in the middle there, and we have to decide where you want our rectangle rings to be with that seam. You can have it so the rectangle ring sits right on your seam like this, because we're going to fold this in half like this to make our strap. I actually prefer to have my seam on the bottom side. So I have my rectangular ring like that, and you can see my seam. I don't know if you can see that. See my seam right there? So what we're going to do is make it nice and even, and we're going to take some clips and we are going to clip it down. So it's a really fun way of making straps. Make sure it's nice and even as you clip down. So what we're doing pretty much is taking that O and making it into our 4-layer strap. So we now have something that looks like that. So now what we're going to do, and this is why I have my zipper foot on, because it's going to make it so I can get my top stitching as close as I possibly, whoops, I apologize for the dog here, as close as we can to the rectangular ring. So I'm going to start close to one side here, do a little bit of a back stitch. We're going to do 1/8 of an inch all the way down here, as close as we possibly can to our rectangular ring, 1/8 of an inch all the way up, pivot, and again as close as we can, and back down. Back stitch. And then that's where the zipper foot comes in really handy, because my foot is sitting right up against that rectangular ring. Now, one thing we want to be careful of is, especially if you're on a walking foot machine like me, is the walking foot will tear the crap out of our hardware and vinyl there. So I just take a scrap. This is actually where I test my tension. We're just going to put that behind there, that way it doesn't scratch it up. And then continue working down and around all the way. There we go, that's the first strap done. You can see I got pretty close, oopsies, pretty close to the hardware there. So I'm gonna go off camera and do the exact same thing with the other strap. Okay, now that we have our straps done, we are going to work on our top panel. So we are going to work on our tongue pieces right now. I've already gone ahead and done one of the zippers. Those that watch me are going to be in awe, because I am actually going to try Joe's method of doing some hand sewing to base things in place in some places. I am not one that likes to sew with a needle and thread, but I think it's actually might be really helpful in this situation. So what we want to do is, she says in the pattern not to put your zipper pull on, and definitely you don't have to do that. I am terrible at getting them on. I don't want to fight it later and have it all uneven. She has a great trick to do it, but I haven't been able to practice it too much, so I'm just going to do this my way. So rather than cutting 9 inches, I cut 11, whoops, to give myself just a little bit extra length. So I'm going to end up pulling my zipper pull down below our work. You'll see what I mean when we do it. So for these zippers, we want to turn one side in 90 degrees, and then on the other zipper you want to do it the opposite. So because I've done it on the left side of this one, I'm going to want to do it on the right side of that one. Make sure your zipper pulls are going up. We want to mark on the side that we're doing a 3/4 of an inch. I'm just using my Choco pen. Okay, and then you're going to pull, I'll bring you in a little closer, pull the teeth down like this, And then you're going to pinch that line. You see here, I'm going to pinch onto that line. Oops. And fold it up onto itself so that fold is almost going against the zipper teeth right there. And then to hold that in place, you can take it to your machine. That's what I usually do, but I'm going to do it her way today. I had to search high and low for a needle, but I found one. So, and then just with, it doesn't have to be neat, just within the seam allowance. What's going on? There we go. See, I'm not very talented with needle and thread, but we're going to get there. I'm all tangled there. Okay, and just do a couple straight stitches in and out to hold that in place for now. I'm just going to do 2. That should be more than enough, I think, just to hold it for now. Yeah, I still don't like hand sewing. I think it's just too small for me to see. I don't have the patience for it at all. Okay. Do you know what? It did the trick and I didn't have to go over to my machine to do it. So I'm just gonna trim off my frays there. So now, here we go. We got those basted. They're opposite each other, like so. So one's going to the left and one's going to the right. Put those zippers aside for now. Now we are going to put the male side of our magnetic snap on the lining of our flap tongue. So yeah, you need your lining piece. You'll need your magnetic snap and washer, and then I always back mine with a little piece of Decovil Heavy just to give it a little bit more support behind that snap because it will be open and closed quite a bit. So you want to flip it over to the wrong side, and on our pattern we have a mark where our snap placement is. Simply going to line up your pattern, mark where your snap center is going to go, take your washer, match up the circle on the washer, and draw your lines. And that's where you're going to put your snap. So go ahead and install your snap as per your manufacturer's instructions for it. We'll come back once that is all done. So I've done that. I also like to put a piece of Gorilla Tape on the back or duct tape just to, I don't know if it really helps. In my mind, it helps protect the piece that it's going to be rubbing against possibly, and I just think it gives it a little bit more stability to keep those prongs in place. So you can put the lining piece aside, and you're going to pull out your exterior piece. So what we want to do is we want to take our marking chalk, and let's make sure I cut this nice and straight first, which I did not, so I'm just going to trim that up a little bit. Again, I rushed through cutting this morning so I could get the tutorial going, but I probably should have taken a little more time. Okay, so from the straight edge, we want to measure in 7 3/8 of an inch and put a little mark on each side. Just like so. Okay, we are then going to take the 2 zippers that we just did with the sides turned in, and we want to put it right sides together with the panel. So you can tell this is right side up here, so we want it to be right side down, so right sides together with the panel, the curved side going towards where the seam allowance would be. We want to mark, we want to clip that side. Line that up and clip it all the way down. I should have brought my other clips from the machine. So mine is going to hang way down because I cut this really long. Part of that is, oh, I also put little tack stitches at the end. So I can actually pull my zipper pull right down out of the way once that is clipped. Like so. And then we're going to take the other one and clip it down the exact same way. And then we're going to take this to our machine. And we are going to baste this with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance just to hold them in place. So the zippers are right sides together with the panel. I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera because it's just basting the zippers onto the sides, and then we'll come back and attach the lining to it as well. Okay, and that is done, just baste it on. So if you were doing this my way, unzip your zipper. You have your pulls hanging way down and the other sides of the zipper hanging way down. We just want to make sure they don't get caught when we're sewing the other part on. So now what we want to do is we want to take our lining piece and our exterior piece, put them right sides together. And I forgot my clips. Let me just quickly go grab now. Put them right sides together. Flip them around. Line up those raw edges. Line up the bottom pieces. Make sure that fabric is evenly distributed everywhere. Now, if you do not like sewing curves, she does have on the pattern pieces a dashed line there. So you could always print off another one of these, lay it on your piece, and trace out where that seam allowance is so you have a line to follow. I'm just going to eyeball it because we all know I'm a little bit lazy when it comes to that stuff. Okay, down the other side. Again, making sure you don't get this twisted like this if you're doing it my way. Make sure it's nice and straight. Okay, and then I'm going to take this to the machine. Again, I'm not going to do this part on camera. I still have, actually I put on my right side zipper foot on my machine. And we're going to do a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around, leaving this bottom edge unsewn. And make sure these don't get in the way. Okay, so I've gone ahead and done that. I'm just going to take my pinking shears just around this top curve here and trim it down just a smidgen, just to help make that corner nice. I'm not going to trim down the sides at all. And then we're going to hope that I sewed my zipper straight, and we're going to turn this right side out. This is why we don't put the Decovil Lite in just yet, because this is such a small opening to turn that it would just make it too stiff to turn. And I have one of these, I believe it's called a purple thing. I just picked it up from one of my local quilt shops many years ago. And I use it, a chopstick would work too, but I use it just to poke out my seams. So, and I'm just going to, oops, do up my zippers just so I can see how well I did. with the straight zipper. I didn't do too bad. I think I am okay with how it turned out. It's not too wavy or anything. Maybe a little bit right there, but it's going to be just fine. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this to my iron and I am going to press it nice and flat because it's a little bit wrinkly. And then I'm going to take my Decovil Lite and I'm going to put the sticky side up towards my exterior and stick it in. I'll get it in all the way and then I'm going to fuse that and then the tongue will be done. Okay, I lied. We're not quite done with the tongue. What we want to do now, I see I have everything fused in there, is you want to go down here, around here, and up with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance just to top stitch all of that into place. Okay, so now that top stitching is done. I had a little bit of an issue here. I would recommend using, I used the 18mm magnetic snap. Probably should have did a 14mm. Almost couldn't top stitch it. It went a little wonky, but go with the smaller magnetic snap if you can. Okay, so now we want to attach our top panel B linings and exteriors. So I am going to do this a little different than the pattern just because I like to skip a step. So if you're using a directional print or a fussy cutted print, you want to make sure that you match them up the way you cut them. I'm going to do one side right now and then I'm going to do the other side off camera. So I am going to take, actually I'm going to take my lining piece first. Again, I didn't trim my stuff. Okay, I'm going to take some double-sided tape and put it along the side. Again, make sure it's going the right way if you have a directional print. Oops, that's going to be the wrong side. So I want this to be like this and it'll be on there like that. Okay. This print is really hard to tell which way is going the right way. Okay, so on my lining piece, I got the tape down the left side and I am going to match this straight edge and the straight edge of that, of the lining piece should be even, and my tape, actually I'll go like this, it might be easier. Yes, much easier this way. And press down your double-sided tape. You can also use clips and baste this as per the pattern. I'm just trying to do this a little bit faster. Try that again. Okay. Push that down. Like so. And then depending which way I wanted this one to go, and it's this way. So you're putting it on the lining right side up, so our lining pieces end up being right sides together. And we're going to take our exterior again, making sure I have it lined up the way I want it to be. I don't know which way my print went. Yeah, that's fine. I think it will be. I did fussy cut this one, but there's so many flowers that I'm having a hard time seeing what goes where, and I'm hoping I did it on the right side. That's good enough. Okay, and then you're going to take that and line it up and stick it down. Your tape's good. And then I'm going to take this to the machine and go down this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then I'm going to repeat and do the exact same thing on the other side. So that zipper is pretty much just sandwiched in between the exterior and the lining piece. Okay, so that's done. Like I said, I just took a couple steps and did them all at once. The joys of double-sided tape sometimes make that very easy. So you can see we have our lining parts done, and then we have our exteriors. So now what we want to do is we want to push these away from each other, and the lining out and the exterior, and we want to top stitch along each of these sides, this way and this way. So go ahead and do that and then come on back. Okay, so you can see it's all nicely top stitched there. If you're doing it as per the pattern, this is when you will put on your zipper pulls. Said I kept mine on and I just had them hang out down here. Now we are going to do the placements for our connectors. So on all 4 corners of this top panel, we want to go 1.5 inches in this way and 1/2 inch down. Is that right? So I'm going to go like this and make an X with my chalk. And 1/2 inch down. So 1.5 in, 1/2 inch down, and that'll be a center mark there. Same with on the bottom. 1.5 in. Oopsies, which will be there. And a 1/2 inch down. One and a half in. 1/2 inch down. And 1/2 inch. So we have 4 places where we are going to do our straps. Okay, so now before we do the straps, we want to make sure that we're not inserting the straps into our lining. So what we're going to do is just pull our lining panels away from the exterior, like so. And that's Benny that's barking now. I'm the only one home, but the dogs are very noisy, and I apologize. Okay, so it's gonna kind of be awkward because it's gonna kind of sit up like this. Next, what we're gonna do is take our handle connectors. These are the ones that we didn't top stitch. We're gonna take it, and we want the raw edges that we folded in to be facing upwards. It's gonna go in like this, so right in that. It's going to be 1.5 inches in and 1/2 inch down. So right where this cross is right here, that is where we're going to line this up like that. So like so. I am actually, again, I love my double-sided tape. I want it on the right side of that. Put some double-sided tape. And we're going to put it at that 1/2 inch mark there. And I'm also going to open up the zipper just because it makes it so it lays just a smidgen flatter. And then what we're going to do is right along this edge here, we're going to stitch that with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to do all of the straps at the same time. So I'm going to put these all on like so and tack that raw edge with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so that is done. I forgot to mention, I don't know if you can see here, make sure your stitching does not go beyond that connector. Otherwise you are going to see it. We do not want to see it. Okay, so I have all 4 of those done. Next step is we are going to grab one of our handles, and we want to have the handle wrong side up. I know my wrong side because I have my seam on my wrong side. So you want that up. You're going to slip it through. Can you see this? You're going to slip it. So we have it sitting here wrong side up, our strap. We're going to take that rectangular ring, slip it through the connector, and bring the connector all the way up and line it up with the top of the bag there, and put a couple clips to secure. You want to make sure it's lined up so we don't see this bottom that we just sewn. Then we're going to take this and we're going to bring it around, making sure it doesn't twist and it's still wrong. Where's my wrong side? Wrong side up. Bring it around. Still make sure it's wrong side out. Use the seam as your guide. Put it around the other side through the ring and bring the connector up to the top, making sure you cover the connector underneath, the underside of it, and clip it in place. So this is what we have. So you know if you got it the right way, because if when you flip it up you can't see that crease or that seam, you know you got the right side. Okay, so then what we're going to do is take this to the machine, and we are going to go with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, top stitch this way, go across as close as we can to that rectangular ring, up again and up the top. I am going to putting rivets in to secure this. If you're not going to do that, make sure you do a stitching of an X just to give it a little extra stability. So again, you're going to go across the raw edge, 1/8 of an inch down here, as close as you can to the rectangular ring, back up. If you're not putting in rivets, you're going to have to do an X in the middle as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and connect both of the handles, and then we are almost done our tap panel. Okay, so this is what we have. I struggled with it. I don't know why. It's really not hard to do, but for some reason my machine was fighting me. So yeah, so you have this down, and when your handles are up, they're going to look like this. So now if you're going to do rivets, you go ahead and do that now. Still make sure your lining is pulled out of the way. She does 2 decorative rivets here. I'm actually only going to do 1. So I will do 1 with you, and then I will go off camera and do the others. So I'm going to guess, I just kind of eyeball it. I'm going to put it right there. I'm going to mark it on all of them so they're all relatively the same. Sure. And then I'm going to take my hole punch. I just have it on the smallest setting. I'm going to punch my hole, making sure you're not going through the lining, you're just going through that exterior. Punch your hole. I'll take my rivet, stick it through the hole, and I'm also going to take little scraps of Decovil Lite, or Decovil Heavy, sorry. Do a little hole in those as well. Put it on the back. Get my cap, push it together till it clicks. And then I use a rivet press. So I'm going to press that in. And that is 1 rivet done. And it actually falls perfectly in between that ring. So that actually is actually really kind of pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the other 4. And then I believe, I'll just double check. I think we'll just be doing Then we will be adding the zipper tab. Okay, so this part is almost done. What we want to do now is we can flip our lining pieces back over this way. We're going to put our straps into the middle, and we are going to clip all the way around, and we want to baste the lining like 2 layers, wrong sides together, all the way around with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, making sure we're not going over top of our handles. So just clip them all together. You don't necessarily have to clip. I will, because my luck, it will shift, and then I'll be sad. Of course, you're not doing this one because it's already done. So we're going to go with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, starting here, working down this way, down this side, across the bottom. Now where the zippers are, I sometimes like to just go back and forth a little bit just to secure them a little more. This way, secure them more. Make sure your zipper pulls are up above. They're not hanging out down here. All the way down here and back up, and then across the top here. So I'm going to go and do that and come back, and then we are going to do the zipper tabs, and then the top panel is done. Okay, so she is basted all the way around. You'll see that my lining pieces were a little bit shy, but do you know what? It's all going to be caught within, like right here. We're going to be doing a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and that is all going to be caught into it and make up the difference. So I'm not too worried about that. Now, if you're doing the zipper tabs like I'm going to do, we are going to do them now. So where's my tape? What I'm going to do, you can either take your tabs that we previously did. You're going to be folding them in half, and you can baste them across the bottom here. I'm just going to take a little bit of double-sided tape, put it down on half of it, because we're going to be sewing that anyways when we add it to the bag. So I'm just going to do this, fold it in half like so. So we got wrong sides together. Other one. Wrong sides together. And then we want to mark our center. So I'm just going to use my table here because they're 1 inch. So that's my center. And I'm also going to mark 3/8. 1, 2, 3. In like this. So we have those markings there. Do the same with the other one. And 3/8. Okay. And then what we're going to do, you want your straps out of the way. So right where these straps are here, we're going to line this line up with the bottom of the bag centered. So this little line here should be in between your zip, like in the middle of your zipper tape. And this line should be equal with the bottom of your bag. And then clip it. Do the same with the other one. Center it with your teeth. And the line with the bottom of the bag. So they are nice and straight. And clip it. And then take that to your machine and baste those on with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so she is all done. This is my second time filming this one because I must have forgot to hit the record button. Because we have them all basted on, which is great. And then I just trimmed my zipper tape to be the same length as the zipper tab here, because mine was super long. So I just trimmed it, left a little bit overhanging here like this, about 1/2 inch or so. So that is it. You can kind of see what the bag is going to look like. I think it's going to be so awesome. All right, so that is the top panel complete. Okay, so now that the top panel is done, we're going to work on our bottom panel assembly. So you want to take your bottom overlay, which I'm doing in a vinyl, and your heavy stabilizer, which I am using Decovil Heavy, and we want to mark a center line down the middle of these going this way. So the way I'm going to do that, so I don't have to math this early in the morning, is I'm just going to fold it in half and put a snip, and fold it in half on the other side and put a snip. Find where my pen went. There it is. And my ruler. And I am going to line up the centers of those snips, which looks straight, and draw a line. And that should be somewhat center. And we are. Now we want to do the same on this one. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. You can totally do the math. I just am not good at dividing fractions in half. So and then draw a line on that. Then we're going to place this along, matching up those center lines, and trying to have an even amount, which is about 1/2 inch or so on either side. You can stick this down with double-sided tape. This is fusible for me, so I'm going to run this to the iron quickly and fuse this on. Okay, so I have that fused on. The next thing we want to do is take some double-sided tape and put it along the long edges. Again, if you're using cotton, you can always press this, or you can use clips if you don't want to use double-sided tape. And we are going to fold the overlay over top of this Decovil Heavy, or the Heavy stabilizer, using it as a guide to where we're folding. So it's going to give a really super nice crisp edge like that. Do the same with the other side. And I'm just pushing my fingers until I feel that Decovil Heavy and folding it down. Oops. I want to make sure it doesn't lift at all. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and I am going to top stitch along this top with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then I'm just going to go and base these ends down with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I'm going to go and do that off camera, and then we'll come back and continue. So that's it with the top stitching done. Everything is held in place good. Next, you want to grab your exterior front and back panels. If you're using a fussy cutter print, make sure you're very aware of which one is your front and how it's going to sit. My panels don't really matter because there's just a lot of flowers. So what we want to do is make sure we have them both. So if this is the bottom one, I want this facing upside down. We're going to put them right sides together. We're going to clip along the edge here. And then we're going to sew them together with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance along here. Because I am using cotton, once it's done, I'm going to open up my seams and press that. If you are using vinyl, open up your seams and then do an 1/8 of an inch top stitch along the seam just to keep those seams open. Because I'm using cotton, I am not going to do that step. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll be back. So I have my seam pressed open. Again, if you were using vinyl, you couldn't press this. Definitely go and top stitch along the seam there, just to make sure that those aren't going to like fold over or whatever. You want them to stay in place. Okay, so you're going to put that right side up, and then you're going to take your overlay, and where we made those little snips when we drew the line, we want to line those up with that center seam there. So it's perfectly centered, and I just love it when it fits perfect. Center seam there. And clip it down the sides. Again, you could use double-sided tape if you wanted to hold it in place. I'm just going to use clips for this. I think it'll be fine. Okay, and then we are going to sew all 4 edges with a 1/8 of an inch top stitch and seam allowance all the way around this whole overlay. All right, so that is all done. My top stitching looks awesome. I also took the time to put my nameplate on. So you want it centered and 1 1/4 inches up from the bottom panel. So you can put that part aside for now. You're now going to do the exact same thing we just did, but with the lining front and back panels. So you're going to put them right sides together, and you are going to sew along here with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then press that seam open, and then we will put this and our other panels. Okay, now this is really super frustrating. I just realized that the last, I want to say 20 minutes or so, I have been recording without sound. My lavalier mic crapped out, so I'm back to my iPhone mic. So for the next little bit, it's going to seem really weird because I am going to attempt voiceover. Please be gentle on me. I've never had this happen before. I'm not sure how to do voiceover. So we're going to do this. Yeah, of course it's going to be voiceover over the assembly of the main part of the bag. So yay, this is going to be fun. Definitely having technical difficulties, but we will get through this. So thanks for understanding, everybody, and let's give this a go. Thanks. Okay, so this is the lining main and exterior panels together. We have sewn this together with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Yeah, so now what we want to do is we want to make sure that our top panel and our main bag panel are the same width. If they're not, trim them to the same width. Just make sure you do it evenly on both sides. Mine was fine. I think it was off like by 1/16 of an inch on each side, but I'm not going to worry about that. Make sure you put your center marks on the top and the bottom of the main panel and of the bottom of the top panel. You're going to undo your tongue here, and you are going to clip it out of the way. So I think, yeah, I'm just going to use hair clips to do this, just to keep that out of the way. And then what we're going to do yes, we want to put these right sides together, making sure that you're putting the top panel with the tongue facing down, because the tongue goes over the top panel. So we are going to flip the handles out of the way. We are going to put them right sides together, and we are going to clip them along the top edge here. And on the other side as well. And then what we're going to do next with this is we are going to take this to the machine, and we are going to sew this with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so this is what it looks like so far. Now what we're going to want to do next is take our main lining panel and put it right sides together with right along the seam where we just sewed the 1/4 inch. But this time we are going to be sewing all the way across. So you're going to want to make sure that that tongue is still clipped out of the way because you don't want to be sewing through that by accident. So match your centers, clip it all the way across. And then you're going to take this to the machine, but this time we are going to sew across here with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. While I'm at the machine, I am also going to flip the lining over and put the exterior and the lining panel wrong sides together. And then I'm going to top stitch along the seam that we have just sewn. Right along here with the 1/8 inch seam allowance. So go to your machine, do the 3/8 inch seam allowance to attach the lining, flip them wrong sides together, and then top stitch. Okay, so this is what it looks like. My top stitching turned out really good. So now it's time to install the female portion of the magnetic snap. So what we want to do is do up the zipper or the zippers. And we are going to just push really hard on our magnetic snap to make an indent in the fabric below. You are going to see me struggle with this because my fabric is so dark that I can't see the imprint, but I can feel it with my fingers. So that's what I'm doing now, looking for it. I can feel it there. And I am going to mark it with my pen, but my pen is going to be a little dark. It's going to be hard to see. So I would definitely recommend doing this with a white pen. Mine broke, so yeah. This shouldn't be hard as it looks. So yeah, check the indent and make sure it matches up with the center part of the male snap. And that is where we are going to install our magnetic snap. This is me looking for a lighter colored pen. Voiceover is just so much fun. Okay, so I can see that a little bit better, and I'm seeing that it does match up. I'm going to press just a little bit harder to make more of an indent. If your bag was vinyl, the indent would definitely show up a lot easier than it does on my cotton fabric, or even if it was cork. Okay, so now what you want, I'm showing you my little indent there. There it is. So what you're going to want to make sure you do is before you install that magnetic snap, you want to make sure you flip the lining out of the way because you do not want to cut through the lining when you're cutting your slits to put in the magnetic snap. So make sure that's up and out of the way. Apply fray check if you need to. Okay, so this is our magnetic snap done. It lined up perfect. It was great. It's all good. I'm not sure what I'm talking about here. Okay, so what we want to do next is we want to make sure our handles are facing down. We're going to flip it over and we're going to take our lining main panel, the bottom part that isn't attached, and we are going to flip it up to the top there, and we are going to clip it along the top right sides together with the other lining. So we've kind of created a little bit of a loop here. So you want to make sure your exterior panel is still hanging down below. We're going to deal with that side here momentarily. So once we have this clipped, we're going to take this to the machine, and then we are going to sew along the top with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so that's all done. This is what it looks like. We have one loop on the back. So next what we want to do is we want to take the free end of the exterior main panel, and we're going to line it up along that same edge that we just sewed across. So now it's going to look like we have two loops beside each other, a lining loop and the exterior loop. So we are going to end up sewing across this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And this is going to help complete or pretty much complete the exterior, the main panel exterior. So right across here, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so here we have two cylinders. Now what we want to do is we want to flip this in a way that we have the lining on the outside and the exterior on the inside. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to put my arm through the lining loop and I'm going to pull everything through there. Well, I guess just the lining through there and pull it over top of the exterior so it makes them go wrong sides together. This is a little tough, but it's doable. And it's only because it's such a small bag that it makes things a little bit harder. There we go. That's what we have. So now we're going to come across a hard part. This is a tube and we need to top stitch that seam that we just sewn around here. It is not necessary for the construction of the bag. This is a very, very hard thing. At this point, I wasn't sure if I was going to succeed at it myself. So I'm just going to end up pushing everything out of the way and I am going to put it into my sewing machine and stitch in that tube there. I'm actually going to take you to the sewing machine and show you how I do this. I will be putting it onto a time lapse because, well, not that my sound recorded at that point, but I was cursing it a little bit, but we are going to get it done. So let's go do that. Okay, so the commentary is going pretty well. I am actually going to continue doing the voiceover just because I do not trust my mic, and where I have my camera placement for when I'm shooting at the table or at the machine, it's so far away from the phone that the sound quality is just going to be really crappy. So I'm going to have to go out and buy a new mic, but I want to finish this tutorial and get it out. I think the commentary wasn't too bad. So let me know what you think. I'm very curious. Okay. So we just sewed the tube. I can tell you it was tough. It was really, really tough. But I'm happy to say that my top stitching on the inside, you can't really see it. You can there. It turned out really good. But my top stitching on the lining, look at that. It's a hot mess. It's a hot mess. So, yeah. We're just going to leave it. Nobody's going to see it. It's all good. It's right along that seam where that zipper is. It's going to be completely hidden. I'm just happy that the top stitching on the other side worked well. Myself, I would probably do it again because now this is going to be a challenge that I have to perfect this because it's going to drive me crazy. Not on this bag, but when I make my next ones. It was really tough though. So I honestly, if I had known it had been that tough, I would have probably left it out. It is not structurally part of what the bag needs for its structure. It's just more decorative. It's on the back of the bag. Nobody's going to notice. And Joe even says in the pattern that it is tough and to leave it out if you're worried about it. So I didn't leave it out. It looks good on the outside. I probably won't leave it out again. I'll always do it until I can get it, because it's just going to drive me crazy that I couldn't get it perfectly. So, okay, so now we're going to be moving on to the side pockets of the bag. So I'm actually not doing the card slot option on each. So we are going to skip right over the next couple steps to step 19, and we will start working on the zippers, the sides for this. Oh, actually first, before we go and do all that, I'm going to actually take this to the machine and I'm going to stitch all the way around these just to make it so these stay together and don't slip away. So all the way around here with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and all the way around here with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so here we have just my basting all the way around, just to keep the exterior and the lining as one piece on both sides. So we've got this really big loop. So we can put that aside for now. What we want to do next is we're going to need all of our side pocket pieces. We are going to need all of our pocket base pieces, and we are going to need our tape, which I haven't cut yet. So we need to cut our 11-inch zippers, which I have now done. So make sure that these are 11 inches. Otherwise, your gusset is going to be too big, and we don't want that to happen. So double check your cuts. If it's more than 11, make sure you trim it up so it is only 11 inches. Okay, you can put those aside for now. Now what we want to do is we want to take take 4 of our lining side pocket pieces. And of course I have to, I'm terrible with that woven interfacing. So on the wrong side of one of them, take some double-sided tape. Again, you can just use clips if you don't want to use the double-sided tape. This isn't going to be in the seam allowance at all, so it just helps keep it stable. Remove the paper backing. This last batch of tape I bought from Amazon is just, it's terrible to get the backing off of. There we go. Okay, then take another one and put them wrong sides together. And stick them together. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go around the whole perimeter with an 1/8 of an inch baste, and do the same with the other 2 lining pocket pieces. So here they are. We have them all done. Put those aside for now. Okay, so grab your zippers. We are going to take our exterior base pocket piece, put it right sides together with the zipper. Take your lining base pocket piece and put it the right side to the wrong side of the zipper and clip that. So we have the zippers sandwiched in between, and we are going to go along there with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So once we've done that, you want to fold the 2 pieces, the lining and the exterior, wrong sides together with the seam going towards the pieces away from the zipper. And we are going to top stitch that with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on both pieces. Okay, so that's done on both pieces. So now we're going to make a loop. Take your exterior piece, put it right sides together with the zipper, bring your lining piece. Oh, let me just trim it up here. Loop your lining piece around, which will be the right side of the lining to the wrong side of the zipper. Again, sandwiching it. So now we have a loop happening. clip that on top, and then we are going to sew that with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance again, just like we did before. And you will want to do that on both sections. Okay, so now that we've done that, now we have the tricky part of turning those two pieces wrong sides together. So I try to demonstrate how I do that. I'm not succeeding very well with this first one. I will attempt to show you better with the second one. So you can see how they go wrong sides together like that. So take just the exterior and kind of flip it inside out like this, and then put them wrong sides together. And now we want to take that, put the seam towards away from the zipper, and top stitch along that. Okay, what I did at the machine was I also went along this piece and just basted the two pieces together so they didn't separate. Okay, so now take your two side pocket panels, the exterior ones, and we are going to measure up 3 1/8 of an inch. We're actually going to do this on all of our side pieces. So there's a lot of side pieces, but so just measure up and mark it. Okay, so I'll do the others off camera. Now we want to find the center bottom and the center top of our zipper gussets. So match up the seams where our zippers and the pocket bases went together, and just do small snips on either side. You will also want to mark the center top of the zipper. I forget to do that here. I do that on the next one. And then you're going to turn that inside out. Find the center top and bottom of the side pieces as well. Again, you can use a marking pen. You don't have to do snips like I do. If you do snips, just make sure they're within the seam allowance. And you will do this again on all the side pieces, the linings, and these exterior. Okay, so turn the gusset inside out, and we're going to put them right sides together, matching the bottom snip. This is so we know we have it centered. A couple clips in there to hold it in place. Okay, and then that line that we drew, we want to match that line up with the seam of where we joined the zipper tape to the bottom panels of the gusset. So what we're doing is we're marking quarter sections here, and then we can evenly distribute the fabric in between those sections. So again, on the other side here. Now what I don't show you right here, but what I do with the next one is with the top centerpiece and then the mark on the zipper, you would match that one up, but I did not do that. Okay, so the gusset seems a little bit too small compared to the external piece. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do some small snips around that curve, just so the fabric can spread out and be even with the edges of the side panel or the side pocket. You can see how that works. I used a ton of clips. Clips are good. Sewing on curves is very hard. You're going to do the same on the other corner. making sure those snips are within your 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. These are like maybe a scant 1/4 of an inch only. That was all that was needed to make it so it could evenly go across that corner. Helps if you undo the zipper. It just helps the zipper be a little looser to be able to go around that top curve. And this is me trying to figure out where the center of the zipper is because I forgot to mark it, but I managed to make it work. Again, use lots of clips. In the pattern, I believe Joe hand based this, so you could do that. That would definitely help with going around the curves and not having to deal with all the clips. These side pockets are the hardest part of the bag. Well, maybe that top stitching of the back part, but I don't think that, no, this is definitely the hardest part of the bag. Again, you do not have to do these side pockets. There is an option in the pattern where you could just have regular sides. And what seems like a gazillion clips, I think we're almost ready to go to the machine here. There we go. Okay, so we're going to take this over to the machine and we are going to stitch that with a scant 3/8 of an inch. All right, so I am quickly going to put on my zipper foot because that's just going to make it a lot easier for going around the zipper. So I have my right-handed zipper foot on right now. And we don't want to do a full 3/8 of an inch. You want to do in between 1/4 and 3/8 of an inch here. Now it helps a lot to use an awl around here as well, and just to hold the tape and pull everything where it needs to go without catching your fingers. Take this nice and slow. This is not an easy process having a zip around like this. So take it slow, make sure you're getting those curves really good. And definitely take it nice and slow and try to be as even as possible around the zipper. Okay, so now we are going to do the exact same process, but with the other side and a slight difference, which you will see here pretty quick. So I'm marking my centers, and this time I am going to remember to mark my center on the zipper tape, just so I know I'm getting everything nice and even. So I'm just doing chalk on the wrong side of the zipper tape here, so I know where that center mark is, and I know where to match it on my side piece. Okay, so now you can see here how we have our zippers are closed and they're both on the same side. We need them to be on opposite sides. So if they're closed on the same side, make sure you flip it over so you have the right orientation of where the zipper needs to be. And take your other side piece, still making sure the zippers are on opposite sides when it's closed, and then go ahead and clip all the way around the bag, matching your centers and matching your marks. Okay, so I've done both of those, and I have to tell you how important it is to make sure that the pulls are going the opposite ways. That way, when they're on sides of the beds, or the side of the beds, oh my god, the bag, these will be to the front of the bag, whereas if they weren't opposite, one would go to the back and one would go to the front. So yes, make sure that they are going opposite ways like this before we do the next step. Okay, so I went ahead and I did one of the side pocket panels just to save time. This is what it's going to look like once we get this done. So what you're going to need to do this is the other side panel that we just finished and the lining side panel that isn't attached to another one. So the one that we have them sent together, keep that aside for now. So what you want to do is put your side panel inside out under your zipper. And now we are going to match our marks and our center marks to the zipper, just like we did with the exterior panel, along the same seam that we attached the exterior to. So find all your centers, match them up. And what we are going to end up doing is pretty much sandwiching the zipper in between the two, the other side of the zipper that's kind of hanging loose. Make sure you don't get that into the seam. Just kind of tuck it inside the pouch. Match up your center on the zipper that we have marked. And the side seams where we attach the zipper to the pocket bases, just like we did with the exterior panels. I didn't find I had to snip anything to get this to go. It's already spread out, so just pin it around the corners or clip it around the corners. And make sure that zipper gets tucked inside and that it won't be caught up in that seam. And I use lots of clips just because these are corners. I am not a pro when it comes to zip around type wallets or anything, and this is very similar to that. You do want that zipper to stay in place though, so you don't get a wavy zipper. Okay, now along the bottom, we want to make sure we leave a 3.5 inch or so hole unsewn for turning, because we are going to turn this right side out. So I just put little marks as reminders to where I'm going to start and stop sewing. Okay, so you're going to start at 1 mark. You're going to sew around with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Make sure your zipper foot's on. Okay, so we have that all done. And you can see we have the opening in the bottom of the bag. Take a chopstick or a pen or what have you, just to get those curves all nice and flat. Now we have to deal with this opening in the bottom. So you're going to fold down the seam allowance on that raw edge and kind of line it up just above the stitching that you can see where we had attached it. So I'm just going to use a little bit of double-sided tape, and I'm going to put it along where that seam is. I'm going to stick it down to, and this is just to hold it in place for me. And there's Miss Coco. Okay, so make sure that raw edge is folded in, and then just kind of stick it to the tape. Sorry for Coco, my son just walked in the door. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of flip it inside out, making sure that that opening has stayed in place, because we are going to close that opening when we catch it in the top stitching. So it's very important that it doesn't move because we want it to get caught. So we're going to end up top stitching all along here with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So make sure that seam is closed off. Stick your panel in here. Again, I'm still using my zipper foot. It's just easier to keep it on with the zipper. And work your way all the way around. Pull your zipper pull out of the way. Take your curves nice and slow to get a nice even top stitch. Did I keep double checking just to make sure that my seam hasn't come loose from that double-sided tape? Because at this point I'm wanting to catch it to close up that hole in the bottom of this. And she's all closed up. Okay, now we are going to take the lining piece that we had glued together, and on the opposite side of the zipper and that panel that we just sewn, we're going to sew it to the other side of the zipper that has nothing attached. Okay, so we are to the final step of this bag. We are so close. So you want to take the exterior tube that we had made. We want to be very aware of where the front of the bag is, mainly because we want our side panels to have the zippers, when they're closed, both facing to the front. So if you put them on wrong, they could be to the back, or you could have one, you need them to be to the front. So I'm undoing my tongue zipper here, mainly because we're going to have to turn through there. Find your centers on the top panel and the bottom of the exterior. Again, I should have done this prior. I'm really bad with forgetting to mark my centers, but I'm just putting small snips in there. I'm matching up the seams where we join the top panel to the other panel of the exterior of the bag, and that's giving me my centers for the top and the bottom. We already have the centers marked on our side panels, so we're good to go there. So now it's just getting the correct orientation of our zippers. So the zippers are going to be lining side out, and you want the pulls to be to the front, so where the opening is. So this one is orientated right, so the zipper pull will be at the front, and just double checking the other one when closed, that on the other side it will also be to the front of the bag. And then you're just going to mark your centers and clip it all the way around, holding it in place for both sides of the bag. So there we are, mark the top center of the side panel, the top center on the top panel, secure with a couple clips. And then again with the bottom panel. So what you're going to do is we don't have a clip where we haven't clipped where the bottom panel is because we have a seam there. So just use the seam from where we join the two bottom exterior panels. That is our center. So mark your center mark on the side pocket panel to that seam. And then continue to clip all the way around for both sides of the panel. Again, I used lots and lots of clips just because I don't want it to shift. In the pattern, Joe hand based this. You can definitely do that. That would definitely help. I didn't do that. Another thing you could do is use staples. I know some bag makers use staples. I don't, because I hate having to avoid them, or if I missed one in a bag or what have you. So, but that is another trick that you could do around these curves to make it good. So go ahead and clip all the way around this one, and then add it on your other panel. Do the exact same thing. Okay, so now that we have that all clipped, I like to make sure my zipper foot is on. I find when it comes to doing binding, the zipper foot is the easiest to do this with. So what we want to do right now is we want to go around and sew this around with 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides. Okay, so we have that sewn all the way around. What we want to make sure, because we are doing it along a zipper, is just kind of pop it out and make sure that we caught the zipper okay and didn't go over any zipper teeth or anything. I think we are looking okay here. So yeah, I just like to double check, and just at least it's easy to pop out that side just to double check that zipper. So then you just go ahead and you do the exact same thing with the other side of the bag. Okay, so now the fun part, the binding. So I changed my thread to match my binding because I'm using a cream color binding, and then you won't see it. You want to take your binding tape, open it up flat and fold down, I don't know, about an inch or so. Put that along the seam that we're going to be binding. I like to do this around the outside of the bag, so it'll be on the bottom. So clip that raw edge all the way around. You're going to do this with the whole binding all the way open. This is pre-made binding. You can make your own and do it the exact same way. But go ahead and clip that all the way around. Just matching up the raw edges there. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I've just overlapped where we started. I have cut it and I have folded that other end with over about an inch, and we are going to line it up with the one underneath. Keep them open, and that's going to get enclosed within the seam. So that gets rid of the raw edges on either side of the binding. Now we are going to put this down. So the binding is down on the machine. We're going to have to make sure that it stays in place as we do this. And we are going to sew that edge of the binding on with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. But you are going to have to be very aware that that binding is staying flat and not folding up and catching the other side of the binding. We just want to catch that one raw edge while we do this. And especially where the binding starts and stops, make sure you catch all of that in so we don't have any raw edges hanging out and about. So just go through it clip by clip. Again, zipper foot is very helpful with this. I would always put on a zipper foot to do my binding. I guess you could also hand base this on or use staples as well, but this is the way I like to do it. Okay, so you're going to go all the way around, securing that raw edge of the binding in place with the edge of the bag. Okay, so we have that all done. Just double check that the binding was caught all the way around, that it didn't get folded up onto itself, that all worked out well. So now what we're going to do is you want to take that other raw edge of the binding, you're going to fold it into the center and then fold it again over top of that seam. So you want that raw edge to be folded into the center of the binding tape. It should go there naturally, and then take that whole edge and enclose the raw edge of the bag, flipping it over to the other side. Just like this. So we have no raw edges there. So you have the folded side of the bias tape, or the binding tape, over top of our sewn together edge. Kind of match up where our joins were to make sure they're nice and even. And then fold it over. Sorry about my arm here, guys. Okay, so I said if you're using pre-made binding tape, it kind of does this naturally. So just clip that in place and clip it all the way around, doing the same thing with the tape, folding it upon itself and then over that raw edge of the bag. Now you can see that on the side that we had sewn, you can still see some of my stitching. That's okay. It's not going to be able to be seen in the bag. It's going to be right in the creases of the interior of the bag, and they won't be noticeable at all. So continue to clip around. And when you get to the zipper tape, be very mindful of where the teeth are, especially when we start sewing, because we are going to be sewing this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. We're going from a 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch. So you want to make sure you are not sewing over your teeth and that you are keeping your stitches as close or as even as possible as we go over that zipper tape. If this was a bag that didn't have the zipper panels there, you wouldn't have to be as careful. It's a little bit more forgiving, but because this bag that I'm working on does have the zipper panel, you just have to make sure you're not sewing over your teeth. So there we go, easy peasy. I said there's nothing to be scared of for binding. It's actually pretty easy, and sometimes it makes for a faster assembly of the bag, but for a barrel and especially bowler bags, it just gives such great structure. Okay, so what I do here is I take my zipper foot and I line my foot right up against the edge of the binding, and then just follow that all the way around. But again, when you get to the zipper, make sure you're mindful of where the teeth are. But if you're using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, you should be good to go. So just go ahead and stitch this in place all the way around. All right, we are in the home stretch. Now, all we have to do, once you make sure that that binding was caught everywhere, is turn the bag right side out. The very first thing I check is just double check the zippers to make sure I didn't run them over, because then you can go ahead and tear out that stitching and redo those areas. But if they look good, said mine look okay. So I'm just going to push the whole bag out. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to turn, but just work at it, push out those seams, and you should be golden. Once we have this all pushed out, you're just going to see how wonderful the binding is there to give the rounded edges a nice crisp look, and it helps a lot with the structure as well. It just has a little bit of bulk there, and it just, I don't know. I used to be horrified of binding. I am not anymore. I am a big fan of it, especially when it comes to these barrel or bowler bags. It just is awesome. So there we go. That is the binding. Absolutely, completely all done. That wasn't so bad. See, you guys can do it. I have faith that you'll be able to do this binding. Binding is super easy, and you will love doing it once you have had a little bit of practice with it. Again, my trick is the zipper foot. I like the zipper foot. And if you're on a domestic machine, make sure you're using not too thick of materials to do it. So there it is. Well, after that whole ordeal, we survived, and we have the little tiny but mighty bag that we have been working on. It turned out so good. Not too bad for my first one. I'm sure I can improve on it, but I hope everybody liked this tutorial. Again, thank you, Joe, for allowing me to do tutorials on your patterns and designs. It's quite an honor. They're very nice, but definitely this is an advanced intermediate pattern. And there's Miss Coco. Funny, I don't have a microphone, but she's going to make an appearance today. Okay, but thank you everybody for tuning in. If you do like this, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe. I can tell by my analytics that only 51% of my viewership has subscribed. So I know that there's another 49% out there that have not. So please do me a solid and subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Again, sorry for all the technical difficulties in this tutorial, but we got her done. So I guess I will catch you guys on the next one. Bye.